Chapter 2, Section 2, Equations Involving Fractional Form. When we have equations that have fractions in them, the first thing we're going to do is get rid of those fractions because we just don't like dealing with fractions. Now, if you don't have a problem with fractions, you don't have to do this, but you need to learn how to do this so that when we get into Chapter 4, you'll understand what we're doing. So our first step that we're going to do is we're going to clear the fractions by multiplying everything by the least common denominator. So the least common denominator is the smallest number that is divisible by each of the numbers. So for example, the least common denominator of 2, 3, and 6 is going to be 6 because all three of these numbers will go into 6. It's the smallest number that all three of those will go into. Once you multiply every term by the LCD, by the least common denominator, you should now have a normal equation with no fractions, and then you'll go back to the rules that we did in 2.1. So let's look at the problem on the left. We have 3/8 x plus 1/3 is equal to 7/12. So, like I said, if you want to minus 1/3 from both sides and just do the technique, just go ahead and start by using the techniques that we did in in the previous section. That's fine. But I would like for you to learn how to do this technique so that when we get to Chapter 4, you'll understand how to do this. So, the least common denominator between 8, 3, and 12 is going to be 24. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply every term by 24, or if you want to, 24 over 1, however you want to look at it. And you can do this in your calculator if you want to for the first term. So again, what we're doing is the distributive property, so we're going to distribute 24 times each term. So 24 times 3/8 x is going to give us 9x. And if you don't want to use your calculator and you want to understand what's going on, this is what's going on. In my head, in my brain, what I'm doing is 8 will go into 24 3 times, and 3 times 3x is 9x. So again, if we do 24 times 1/3, you can do that in your calculator, or if you want to skip the calculator, what we're going to do is 3 will go into 24 8 times, and 8 times 1 is 8. And then again, we're doing the distributive property, so you're multiplying 24 times each term, so 24 times 7/12. 12 will go into 24 2 times, and 2 times 7 is 14. And you can see we have an equation that all of the fractions are gone, and that's our goal. So now what we need to do is we need to figure out what x is going to be by using the techniques that we did in the previous section. So I need to get my 8 over here with a 14, so we're going to minus 8 since we're crossing the equal sign, and we're going to have 9x is equal to 6. And then I need to get x, the coefficient of x, to be 1, so that means I'm going to divide by 9, and that's going to go to 1. And so I get x is equal to 6/9, and I'm going to reduce that by 3, which is going to be... Alright, so let's try the problem on the right. The least common denominator between 4, 6, and 12 is going to be 12. So we're going to distribute 12 times each one of these terms. So if I do 12 times 1/4 n, because there is understood 1 there, so you can read that as 1/4 n. We're going to say 4 will go into 12 3 times, and 3 times 1n is going to be 3n. And then 12 times negative 5 6, well, a positive times a negative is a negative. And 6 will go into 12 2 times, and 2 times 5 is 10. And then 12 times 5/12, 12 will go into 12 1 time, and 1 times 5 is 5. Now what I need to do is I need to get my like terms on the same side, so I'm going to add 10 to both sides. And so I'm going to have 3n is equal to 15. And then if I divide both sides by 3, I'm going to get n is equal to 5. Alright, problem on the left. Again, we don't have all fractions, but we can turn any whole number into a fraction by putting it over 1 if you need to. So the least common denominator between 4, 5, and 1 is going to be 20. So we're going to multiply all three of these terms by 20. So 4 going to 25 times, and 5 times 3h is going to be 15h. And then plus 5 will go into 24 times, and 4 times 2h is 8h. And then of course 20 times 1 is 20. So we need to combine like terms on the left hand side. These are like terms, so I'm just going to combine them. Don't add the opposite because you're on the same side. So we're going to have 23h is equal to 20. Now I need to let my coefficient go to 1, so we're going to divide by 23. And so we're going to get h is equal to 20 over 23. Alright, on the right hand side, notice on the top that we have a group a minus 3 and then another group a plus 4. So the multiplication is going to be a little trickier here, so just pay close attention to what's going on. I still have fractions that I need to get rid of, so the LCD between 2, 9, and 6 is going to be 18. So watch what happens. We're going to say 2 will go into 18 9 times, and then what I'm going to do is the distributive property 9 times a minus 3. For the next fraction, I'm going to have 9 will go into 18 2 times, so I'm going to have negative 2 times a plus 4. Now you may be wondering, where did that negative come from? Well, here what we have is we have this minus sign is this minus sign. Alright, is equal to, and then 18 times 7, 6. Basically 6 will go into 18 3 times, and 3 times 7 is 21. So if we do the distributive property here, 9 times a is 9a. 9 times negative 3 is negative 27. Negative 2 times a is negative 2a. And negative 2 times 4 is negative 8 is equal to 21. Alright, on the left hand side we need to combine like terms. 9a and negative 2a is going to be 7a. And negative 27 and negative 8 is going to be negative 35 is equal to 21. Just combining like terms. So now we're going to add 35 to both sides because we're taking it across the equal sign, so this is where we're going to do the opposite. So we have 7a is equal to 56, and then if we divide both sides by 7, we're going to get a is equal. Alright, and the problem on the left, it's the same thing. You just need to understand that that 1 is a fraction. You can put it over 1 if you need to, but the LCD, because we do have fractions here and we need to get rid of them, the LCD between 3, 2, and 1 is going to be the smallest number that all three of those will go into, so I'm going to say 6. So the first fraction, again, we're going to distribute 6 times each one of these terms. So 6 times 4x plus 7 over 3. The 3 and the 6, 3 will go into 6 2 times. So we're going to say 2 times 4x plus 7. You bring down your minus sign. 6 times that next fraction. So basically what we're doing is 6 times x plus 3 over 2. Those 6 and the 2 will reduce. So 2 will go into 6 3 times. So we'll do 3 times x plus 3. And then of course 6 times 1 is just going to be 6. So now we're going to do the distributive property again. So 2 times 4x is going to be 8x, and 2 times 7 is 14. And then negative 3 times x is going to be negative 3x, and negative 3 times 3 is going to be negative 9 is equal to 6. On the left hand side we need to combine like terms, not add the opposite because we're on the same side. So 8x minus 3x is going to be 5x, and 14 minus 9 is going to be 5, positive 5 is equal to 6. Now I need to get the 5 over there with the 6, so now we are going to add the opposite since we're going across the equal sign. So we have 5x is equal to 1, and then divide by 5 to get that coefficient to go to 1. X is equal to 1/5. Okay, on the right hand side, this one's written a little bit differently, but my whole goal here is to get rid of those fractions. So you can do one of two things. You can either distribute the 2/3 and the -1/2 initially and then get rid of the fractions, or you can get rid of the fractions right off the bat, which is what I'm going to do. So I'm going to multiply my LCD times all three of these terms, because you need to understand that this whole thing is a term, this whole thing is a term, and then of course 2 is a term. So the LCD between 3, 2, and 1 again is going to be 6. So this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply 6 times 2/3, and again you can do that in your calculator if you want to, or 3 will go into 6 2 times, and 2 times 2 is 4, times 2t plus 1. And then we're going to do 6 times -1/2, which is going to be -3 times 3t minus 2, and then 6 times 2 is going to be 12. So you're going to distribute that 6 times all three of those terms. Now I'm going to do the distributive property again to get rid of these parentheses. So 4 times 2t is going to be 8t. 4 times 1 is going to be 4. -3 times 3t is going to be -9t, and -3 times -2 is going to be a positive 6 is equal to 12. Combining like terms on the left hand side, 8t and -9t is going to be -1t, and then 4 and 6 is going to be 10 is equal to 12. So we have to get the 10 over there with that 12, so we'll minus 10 from both sides. And so we'll have -1t is equal to 2. And then we'll divide both sides by -1, because we need that coefficient to be a positive 1, which is going to be a -2. Alright, here's another applied problem. So it says find a number such that 3/8 of the number minus 1/2 of it is 14 less than 3/4 of the number. So again, is our equal sign. So that's going to be the middle part of it. So anything to the left I'm going to think is the left hand side, and anything to the right is going to be on the right hand side. So the left hand side, it says find a number such that 3/8 of the number, and we don't know that number. 3/8 of means to multiply. Of means to multiply. 3/8 of the number minus 1/2 of it, of that number, is, and I'm going to put that equal sign closer, is 14 less than, so we're going to lessen it by 14, 3/4 of the number. So here is our equal sign. On the left hand side I can combine like terms, but before I do that I want to get rid of all the fractions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply this whole entire equation, all 4 terms, by the LCD, the least common denominator between 8, 2, 4, and 1, because remember that 14 can be a fraction. Just turn it into a fraction by putting it over 1. So the LCD between 8, 2, 4, and 1 is going to be 8. So now I need to multiply, distribute 8 through that whole entire equation, every single term. So 8 times 3/8 is going to be 3n. 8 times -1/2 n is going to be -4n. Equals 8 times 3/4 n is going to be 6n. Minus 8 times 14 is going to be 112. So now I want to combine the like terms on the left hand side, which is going to give me -1n is equal to 6n minus 112. I want to get the 6n and the -1n on the same side, so I want to separate the 6n and the 112, so I'm going to minus 6n from both sides. So I have -7n is equal to -112. And then the last step that I'm going to do is I'm going to divide both sides by -7. So we have 112 divided by 7, -112 divided by -7. So n is going to be 16. So it asks me to find the number. The number is going to be 16. Okay, the last problem that we're going to do is the applied problem. It's another applied problem. And we have the width of a rectangular parking lot. So if we have the rectangular parking lot here, the width of it is going to be 3/5 or 8 feet less than 3/5 of the length. So I don't know what the length is, but I know that 3/5 of the length, 3/5 times x minus 8 is going to be the width. And it's telling me that the perimeter of the lot is 400 feet. Well, if you remember, the lot, or the perimeter of any rectangle is just where you add up the sides. The perimeter of any polygon is where you just add up all the sides. So 400 is equal to, and if I add up all the sides, you know that the other length is x, and this is 3/5 minus 8. So if I add up all the sides, I get x plus 3/5 x minus 8 plus x plus 3/5 x minus 8. Or what I would like to do is remember the formula for a perimeter of a rectangle. Perimeter is equal to 2 length plus 2 width. I just think this would be easier. So we have 400 is equal to 2 times the length, which was x, plus 2 times the width, which is 3/5 x minus 8. Alright, so now we can simplify, distribute the 2, and so we'll get 6/5 x minus 16. We don't really have, too many fractions. We just have that one fraction. So if you want to put that in your calculator and just add 2 plus 6/5, you can, but you're still going to have a fraction to deal with. So I don't know, we can go ahead and get rid of the fraction if we want to, I guess. So we'll multiply through by the only denominator that we have, which is going to be 5. Now if you don't want to do this, you're just going to, in your calculator, combine 2 plus 6/5 and then go with it that way. So 5 times 400 is going to be 2,000. And then 5 times 2x is going to be 10x. And then 5 times 6/5 x is just going to be 6x. And then 5 times 16 is going to give you 80. Alright, so combining like terms, we have 2,000 is equal to 16x minus 80. And so if we add 80 to both sides, we're going to have 2,080 is equal to 16x. And if we divide both sides by 16, we're going to come up with x is equal to 130. So let's go back and see what the directions say, because the directions say find the length and the width of the lot. Well, the length is x, and we know that x is 130. But the width is 3/5 times x minus 8. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to do 3/5 times 130 minus 8. So let's figure out what that is. 3/5 times 130 is going to be 78, and then 78 minus 8 is going to be 70. So your length is 130 and your width is going to be 70. And again, there are other ways that you can solve this. Like I said, if you don't want to get rid of the fraction here, you don't have to. I just did because it goes along with what we were doing in this particular section. Alright, so what I would like you to do is I would like you to complete these particular problems on page 69 and 70. If you have troubles, look back in this video or look in your book, as it is a great resource. All the answers to these problems are in the back of the book, so you can